This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, saving your day from boredom with the best podcasting entertainment.
What's up, Superfans? Welcome in to another edition of the Superfans podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcasts. I'm going to change things up. We're going to go counterclockwise today. I am joined with Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And Sean Anderson.
Hello.
And the reason why I went with Sean last is Sean will be joining us for this first topic. Then he will be dipping because he's got to get to work, and we know how much work is important. But before we get into everything, make sure to check us out, patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. No,
the
it's
shot?
important.
It's saying, like, work's more important than a podcast?
I am glad you have a job, because if you didn't have a job, I would feel sorry for you, Sean,
It
because we
felt
all
like a
need
shot.
jobs. It's not a shot.
Felt like a shot.
It's not a shot. But patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. That's how you help support us. Check that link out down below. And the opening salvo that we're doing for the podcast is baseball. Haven't talked about that in a while. I'm going to be looking at the Chicago White Sox. I'm going to talk Bears and Bulls as well. Maybe some Cubs. Who knows? But with the White Sox, what we are looking at is Scott Boras made some comments, and basically the gist of it was that free agents are going to look a little bit differently at the White Sox than they maybe did 2 years ago. Both of you guys being the White Sox fans in the room, me being the Cubs, I am going to throw it to you. Is Scott Boras right about this? Will free agency or free agents look at the White Sox differently, and should they look at the White Sox differently?
Absolutely. I think they should look at them differently just because the last time they've made a play, this is a different team than any White Sox team has been going into free agency. Over the past 2 years, this team has made a concerted effort to go away from what the typical idea was with Jerry Ball, was to be competitive each and every year. And, hey, hope for 85 games.
Second place is good.
Maybe we'll win 92. They've always went after veterans, and they've had Paul Konerko, and they've had Mark Burley, and they've always tried to have a recognizable face out there and just be trying to add to the core that's been there. The signing of Melky Cabrera comes to mind. The signing of Todd Frazier, the trade for Adam Eaton comes to mind. The signing of Adam Dunn. They've always gone after players that they thought would fit the role of their team and add on in a veteran sense, rather than what they're currently doing in retooling. They typically were trying to retool and add, where now they were in a full rebuild. And now I do think players are looking at them differently. This is a team that is new. They're up and coming. They're trying to get younger talent around them, and now they're trying to add the veteran. They're trying to add the piece to this team, and I think free agents are going to look at that differently. They're trying to add one player that's going to put them over the top, and they're going to sell that to these guys that hey, Anthony Rendon, if you come to this, you are going to be the guy on our team, our young and up and coming team, and at the end of your contract, you won't have to be the guy anymore. We will have a guy that steps up, but you'll still be making a ton of money because you were the guy at some point, and we're going to pay you like that. So I think the teams and players are going to look at them differently, because this is a different team. This isn't the Kenny Williams White Sox any longer. This is the new
Rick Hahn.
This is the new Rick Hahn White Sox, which I don't know if is much different, but it's a facelift.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the fact that we're in a position where right now we are only getting better year over year. This team has loaded up on their farm teams. Like, we have so much young talent coming up through the ranks, and getting someone in at ground floor is basically the offer that they're throwing out there. I love what you said about the look, we're going to give you a ton of money, and this team's going to grow as you age. You're the guy who's going to legitimize us. You're the guy who's going to be the staple of, this is how we're going to make the jump from a pretty good regular season, the fun group of guys, to a playoff team. And then as we continue to grow, we're going to hit that serious contender phase. And that's really when we're going to peak. So I'm all in on the idea that we've got money to spend. We've got young talent. We've got all the right pieces going forward. We're in a position where several other teams were a couple of years ago who are now competing year in, year out in the playoffs. So I think we're 100% on the right track, and I really do hope that we can attract those names, because you're right. In the past, we were aiming purely on name value just to put butts in seats, and now it feels like this is something coming together.
Yeah, and I think with Boras, too, Boras is always going to try to sell his guys on making the most money, making sure you're paid correctly. And I think the fact that he's coming out and saying that is pretty much telling the White Sox that, hey, you have money. I'm not afraid to send my guys to you as long as you're going to spend that money. And I think that's the reason why he made those comments. Scott Boras, I don't think he cares if White Sox fans think like, oh, hey, it is different. I don't think he gives a shit about us. He wants to make money. But I do think that he knows that Jerry Reinsdorf has money to spend, and I think he does know that this team needs to add somebody, and we know that he has that ability to scout players and know what teams need because he has been able to get every big name. He's been able to notice right from when they are about to be drafted to get that guy. You look at his list, and it is a killer list of players. He's gotten Bryce Harper. He's gotten Anthony Rendon. He's gotten Garrett Cole. He's gone out and
Chris Bryant, I believe, right?
He's got Chris Bryant. I mean, you look at that, and all those guys are top 10 picks, but still, top 10 picks aren't like the NBA.
It's not guaranteed.
You're going after guys that, yes, Chris Bryant's a name value, but Chris Bryant's going with you because of the success that you've had. I was about to say sex you've had with Barry Bonds.
I was like, is it sexy?
No,
pick,
but
right?
the success you've had throughout your career. So it is something that Scott Boras has done such a fantastic job over his agent career that guys trust him, and Scott Boras has done also a great job of picking the right guys as well.
Yeah.
And I think that he realizes that the White Sox need somebody, and I think he realizes that Jerry should add one of his players.
It's a win-win situation.
If he pays the money.
He's a scummy guy.
You help me, help me.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott Boras is going to be scummy, but we're thinking of him scummy because he wants more money. But that's the job of an agent. So,
well, and the question I want to throw out there is, there's a lot of free agent names that people are going to throw out there. I know one of the big ones on the pitching side is Garrett Cole, but I didn't see this until Sean. I was trying to find, I think it was your Twitter, where I saw you
great follow,
bash this. Sean _W_Anderson. But I mean, I think it was your Twitter where I saw a potential Mookie Betts to the White Sox trade. And all I remember about it is that Kopech was involved in it. I think it was two players.
It was Kopech and Madrigal for Mookie Betts.
Right.
The reason why, so the deal was proposed on MLB Network. The reason why that deal was proposed, because honestly, that's not enough for Mookie Betts. But the reason why it's that short is because it's a 1 year. He's currently on a 1 year deal, so you'd have to re-sign Mookie Betts. If you were able to get him for that price, you would do it in a fucking heartbeat.
But that's not going to be the trade, obviously.
It's not going to happen. They're not trading him.
I was going to ask you,
if the Red Sox trade him, they're going to be fucking morons.
Exactly.
Sorry.
I was going to ask you this. How hard should the because free agents, let's say the White Sox maybe strike out with free agents, maybe it's a winter meetings thing.
Yeah.
How hard should the White Sox be pushing for a Mookie Betts?
I think
should they look via the trade rather than free agency this offseason?
No, they should be looking free agency.
Yeah, we got the money.
You have the money, and the whole point of having these young players is the fact that they will be able to keep replenishing you. And hey, if you have a depth of prospects and you have guys that are fighting for spots, and hey, you have 6 great pitchers, well, that's going to allow you to make a move to possibly replenish the pool again and keep this going and keep the young players coming up and then moving those for players as well later down the line. But as much as I love Mookie Betts, as long as Mookie Betts is a top 5 player in the MLB, I wouldn't be upset if we traded for him. However, I think free agency is the route for this White Sox team, because I think you can add so many players without giving up anything on your team. And if you have such a great, farm team and a farm system like the White Sox do, and you're able to add MLB talent to that, that is just going to help you out, especially come trade deadline. And if you're like, hey, we need one more piece, let's move one of the farm pieces.
I mean,
that's
look at what happened on the north side. Bring in the free agents to the Haywards and everything. Like David Ross was a minor
John
one.
Lester.
But
that's
John Lester.
The one you need to talk about.
But also, I mean, Jason Hayward was a big one too when we got him from the Cardinals.
Oh, I know, but the biggest one was Lester.
Dexter Fowler, who played a big part in the World Series run. We didn't make that trade until it was like, all right, we need that one piece to go over.
On the closer.
Let's go get Chapman. Yeah.
That was
I don't know
a big deal.
if the Sox will technically need a closer.
Right.
But
they have a lot of good
that piece, whatever it is.
arms. Yeah, I think the piece that they might go after will be an ace if everything goes well for the White Sox in free agency. But I wouldn't necessarily explore the trade route just because I want to keep the farm system full right now, because there is no guarantee that any of these guys hit, and there's no guarantee that Mookie Betts would resign. So that's the reason why I wouldn't move Madrigal and Kopech for Betts unless there is a guarantee that he would resign. And even if there was a guarantee to resign, you would then be giving up more than Madrigal and Betts because he is a top 5 player in the MLB. So I think that it with the White Sox, it is a good thing that Scott Boras is saying this. he's not coming out and saying that, no, none of my clients are going to the White Sox. It is definitely a complimentary thing, but he is doing it to then level with Jerry Reinsdorf and Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams to say, we're open to business if you're open to business. That is what he's saying.
Do either of you have a wish list of a guy that's like, this is the one I really want in the White Sox jersey?
I mean,
or
if you want to give me Garrett Cole and Anthony Rendon, I'm not going to say no.
Who's going to say no to that? Yeah.
I think if you're going to go for a trade piece, one of my coworkers has a good list too. Chris Tannehill had a great list of free agents, and that one hasn't been able to come to fruition because two of the names that he did want were Will Smith, who's been signed by the Braves for $40 million, and then Jake Odorizzi, who opted into his qualifying offer. So that won't be able to be fulfilled, but there are good names on that. Let me get the actual list.
Odorizzi's with the Twins, right?
Yeah, he accepted his qualifying offer. And then Will Smith signed with the Braves. So he did say trade for Starling Marte, which I think is, it's much more attainable than getting a Mookie Betts. You don't have to move a Michael Kopech. You don't have to move a
Madrigal.
You can move on with some smaller pieces.
Yeah, another name on that was J.D. Martinez as well, which he stayed with the Red Sox. One of them was re-signing Jose Abreu, which he accepted his qualifying offer, so that will happen. Yasmani Grandal is on there. I would say Grandal would be an interesting add as a catcher. I think that would be a good signing for them. Starling Marte as a trade would be good. Now that all these moves have happened, I wouldn't be opposed to Nicholas Castellanos coming to the South Side. Okay. Clearly, throwing out Steven Strasburg, Anthony Rendon, Garrett Cole, those are. Yeah, if we added those, I'm not upset.
Right.
But at least for guys that are a little bit further behind that, I would say Grandal and I would say that Castellanos are probably the two that I'm most intrigued by. People are going to bash Castellanos' defense. It's better than what you think it is. I know that the metrics aren't great on him, but he wasn't a liability for the Cubs. No. I had to watch a lot of Cubs games because I worked for Cubs Radio Network. So and there was no glaring omissions where it's like, wow, this guy is really a liability out there, like Eloy was in left, or like Schwarber was in left for the Cubs for many times. And I know that Schwarber is got a great arm, but there's times that he makes just bad reads on balls.
Yes, he does.
Castellanos isn't the most athletic. He doesn't have the best jump, but he makes pretty good reads on balls. So I would be good with Castellanos signing. I'd be good with Grandal signing.
What I don't hear is a pitcher name not outside the top. Like that's. Yeah. Are you looking at Ryu and pitcher stuff is like the second tier?
The pitching stuff is difficult because I would say that it's tough to think about who they would add because they need an ace, and I don't know if the ace is out there. I mean, Bumgarner was an ace.
Cole or Strasburg.
Yeah, well, obviously, but I don't think they're going to be able to get him. And I think Strasburg's going to resign, and Cole's going to go to the Angels. Bumgarner's iffy because he's not the Bumgarner that he was.
Yeah,
but he was still very good last year.
Exactly.
But then he had the injury issues. He had that ACV accident. He's an iffy guy that I think he's on the wrong side of his career.
Yeah, he peaked so early in his carever.
Ryu has good stuff. I think that
can he continue where he left off?
Yeah, and people are going to bring up the age factor with that. Ryu's 33, Bumgarner's 30. However, I think Ryu's got more life and energy into his arm than Bumgarner does.
Definitely agree.
Wheeler's iffy too because Wheeler had a really good year last year, and he was a guy that was traded for Carlos Beltran out of the Giants system, and he was a really great prospect for them. I mean, he was never really able to find his footing into New York until that last year.
Yeah.
It's tough. I like Odorizzi. I do think it's kind of boom or bust with the aces. I think that's the thing that you need on this team, and it's going to suck that the fact that I know that we're probably going to be in contention for them, but it's like we're going to be fifth for Strasburg.
Well, that's the thing. It's like
and
how big
Cole,
would it be if we dropped out like the biggest offer in MLB history for Garrett Cole?
Just back up that Prince truck.
Would you feel good about that? Like if we could land him, but we did have to pay up like the highest paid pitcher in MLB history. That's tough to say.
I mean, if we're offering $280 million, I don't think I would be opposed to it.
If it hits that 300 mark. If we're hitting stupid levels of money. $280 million, stupid.
I don't think he's going to sign for that because I think if it's going to be hard to turn down $300 million, especially when Scott Boras is your agent. But
yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be the final call with him because I think if the Angels offered him $260, I think he would go there.
It's his preference.
He's a Southern LA kid, so yeah. I think that he is probably going to be the guy. that just goes there just because of
local
location.
kid.
I would think that after that,
Keuchel
would be an interesting add too.
Yeah.
Because he has playoff experience, former Cy Young. Wasn't great with the Braves last year, but wasn't horrible. I would like to see what he could do with a full offseason. I think he'd be much better than he was. I think he'd be much better this year than he would last year, but I don't think he's an ace.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, it kind of drops off. Then you're looking at Wade Miley and Rick Porcello, and that's just a fucking yikes.
Yeah.
So
that's why I think are we
think
going to have to throw down and overpay for a pitcher this offseason to legitimize us, or do you think that
I
if we
think
don't,
what it
we're
is
going to be set
need,
back a year?
I think you need inning eaters if you're not able to get an ace.
Okay.
I think you would then need to go to like a Rick Porcello or Wade Miley or some of the even lower tier guys. You'd have to find an Ivan Nova type candidate, but then have to spend a lot on the bullpen, and then make sure that if those guys can eat 6 innings and give you and only allow 3 runs, then you have to capitalize that. Have the bullpen close out, and then spend money on the bats to make sure that you can score 3 runs.
Yeah.
So there is ways to build a baseball team when it comes to if you don't have an ace or if you don't have that big bat in the lineup. I think that if the White Sox are able to go get Grandal and they're able to get Castellanos and add that to Moncada and Anderson and Abreu, and if Eloy obviously, if James McCann is DHing or Grandal's DHing, I think that would be able to allow you to go out and take a lesser shot at a at a pitcher
at that third tier of pitching.
Yeah, and I think that then you would be able to go out and just add another bat through a trade, because if you're able to get I don't know if they're going to keep Yoler Sanchez out there. Yoler Sanchez is probably an interesting second baseman for people because he is a great fielder.
Yeah.
He's a decent hitter. I don't know if Yomer fits into their plans as well because of Madrigal, so he could be a guy that goes and gets you a more defined bat rather than a great glove. Right. And because Madrigal has a great glove, and he's already got a great eye. I don't know if he's a power hitter though. So there's many ways the White Sox can go on this. The biggest thing that I don't want them to do is just not spend money. Yeah. If they're not going out and getting a top 10 free agent, like a Grandal, like one of these aces, like a Rendon, then I'm going to feel slighted. Yeah. And if they're in the conversation for all of them, then great. If it came down to, if the money is still there and they went away from the White Sox for different reasons, it will suck. Right. But I want to be in that conversation. I don't want Manny Machado walking to be like, I don't want Manny Machado walking because we didn't give him exactly what he wanted. Exactly. Give these guys what they want. Offer it. Make a competitive offer. Don't offer them bullshit. Yep. And that's, I think, the biggest thing with that is I want the White Sox to make plays that are competitive, that actually sees where you are in your rebuild. Yep. Are you an attractive place for these guys to go? Because you can offer the most money, but we've seen that before. That doesn't mean you're necessarily the best place. If you offer the guy the same contract, like if you offer Rendon $300 million and the Nats offer him $300 million, he might stay with the Nats for $300 million. But let's just Padres throw him. I don't think they can, but the Padres throw him $300 million and you throw him $300 million. Where would he go? Like I want to see how competitive you can be. Yeah. And that's what I want to be able to walk away from the White Sox free agency period this year is, did we make enough competitive offers? Were we competitive? What was the reason we didn't win? And if it's money, that's going to piss me off.
Well, and just the last thing I was going to add to it was, don't feel like you have to get everything this free agency. If you don't get the starting pitching, that's fine. Yeah. A trade can be possible. Also, looking at next year, Tanaka's up. Are the Yankees going to re-sign him? A year is a long way away. And also, Trevor Bauer got traded to the Reds. Does he want to stay in Cincinnati? I wouldn't. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to be with the Reds. I'd pick the White Sox over the Reds if it was me.
I don't know about that. And then also, the Reds might be good, but I would not scoff at Trevor Bauer being on my team. Yeah. That guy can pitch.
I mean, he can, and that's why I would be like, maybe I go to the White Sox rather than the Reds. But let us know, White Sox fans, what you guys think down below. What's going to be your free agent wish list? Will guys actually want to come to the White Sox? Has that perception changed? Let us know down in the comment section.